So what does the government plan on doing to recuperate the money? Let's bring in MPs to weigh in on the AG's reports today. Liberal Employment Parliamentary Secretary Eric Kuzmirchak, Conservative finance critic Jasraj Singh Hallan, and NDP finance critic Daniel Blakey. Nice to have you all here. Mr. Kuzmirchak, I wanted to ask you, the Auditor General gave the government some praise for getting money out the door to Canadians very, very quickly, but said there weren't enough controls in place to prevent something like this. How do you respond to that? And should the system have been built better at the time?
Well, that's a great question. And I can tell you that right off the bat, we really thank the Auditor General for the tremendous work that she's done in her reporting. And we agree with the recommendations that she brought forward. But she also validates what was really the number one goal of this government during the pandemic, which is that these programs that we rolled out, and there was about $116 billion across the multiple programs that were rolled out, whether it's the wage subsidy, whether it's the Canada Recovery Benefit or CERB, it saved lives. Not only did it save lives, it saved businesses, it saved Canadian livelihoods, and it kept hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of Canadians from falling into poverty. And that's something that the Auditor General had recognized in her report. And we were upfront with Canadians from the very beginning, which is that we knew that the verification was something that was going to happen sort of as point number two after the fact. We knew that getting money out the door into Canadians' pockets was really our number one priority as soon as possible, because we knew that lives and livelihoods were at risk. And so right now is when the post-verification is taking place right now. And I can tell you that out of the $4.6 billion that the Auditor General has pointed as overpayment, about $3.1 billion of that falls into what we refer to as advanced payment. This was when this was funding that we wanted to get out the door as quickly as possible. It was attestation based. And I can tell you that out of that $3.1 billion of those advanced payments, close to half of that has already been recovered, about $1.35 billion. And so both ESDC and CRA are working together on that post-verification that's taking place right now to recoup some of that funding that was overpaid.
I want to ask Mr. Hallan now about the rest of it. What do you want to see from this government in a road to recovering this money?
Well, thank you, Michael. And what I'll say is that the Auditor General was very clear and confirmed what the Conservatives were saying for years, that wasteful spending without any checks and balances have contributed to Liberal inflation, and that was clear to see in the report. We agree with the Auditor General. There needs to be more transparency, which she said in her report. The Liberal government lacks transparency, which lacks accountability as well. And that includes controls that need to be seen in there. Because she also made it very clear in her report that the Liberal government continues to use the same procedure on current and future programs. And she again said that even those programs, they lack any type of control and they lack any type of transparency. So we agree with her that there needs to be an investigation done for the money that Canadians are on the hook for by Liberal mismanagement.
You say Liberal mismanagement, but it was the Conservatives who pushed for an increase to the wage subsidy. So can you not take a bit of criticism for that as well?
We will always support Canadians, but the mismanagement, let's be clear, is on the Liberals. If the Liberals mismanage these programs, which is highlighted in the
But you said inflationary spending, and the Conservatives were the party that said you need to increase the wage benefit. I'm just asking because, I mean, if you guys asked for that amount to be boosted up, do you not take a little bit of criticism for that as well?
Well, I mean, the PBO was also clear that out of the money that was spent inside of the pandemic, 40% of it was not COVID related. And now we're seeing by the Auditor General's report that there was mismanagement that was done by the Liberals. Again, we are always in support of supporting Canadians. The Liberals were in charge of monitoring those programs. They failed to do it then, according to the Auditor General, right. And they continue to do that in the current and future programs. So they have not learned from what the Auditor General has said. And she again said that they lack transparency, they lack control even now. And that's what she wants to see changed.
And Mr. Blakey, I know that Mr. Singh, your leader, said it's very problematic to see that there was so much wasteful spending. But if we go back to early 2020, the NDP was calling for CERB to be given to every Canadian and then to do the checks on the back end. I mean, so can you really criticize the government for the way that they approached it when the NDP would have gone even further?
Well, actually, what we were calling for was a guaranteed annual income model. And so that would have used the tax system to be able to recuperate those funds based on people achieving.
But then you would have put it on CRA to look at that, right?
We would have, but it would have been something that you could have done through your normal tax return, because it would have been your repayment amount would have been based on your income for the year. A lot of the problems that are happening with post-verification have to do with the criteria that the Liberals set up, because they deliberately chose not to have a basic income program. They said you have to have $5,000 of employment income in the last 12 months. Initially you couldn't earn any money, whereas a guaranteed annual income approach would have been far less problematic from the point of view of people earning income. And once they reached enough income, then those support payments would be clawed back through the tax system. So I do think that it would have been much simpler to go with what New Democrats were advocating for. That was part of why we were advocating for it. Also because we do believe in a basic income, and it's something like we'd like to see implemented on a go-forward basis. It was an opportunity to set up that infrastructure. There are some things I would say about the AG's findings, but
I've only got 2 minutes left. I want to try and get to the vaccine portion of this. Mr. Kuzmierczak, if you can keep this quick. On the vaccine wastage, as of May of this year, 32.5 million doses, or about $1 billion, still sitting in inventories. I mean, that's not a good thing, is it?
Well, you know what? We wanted to make sure, number one priority was to make sure that the health and safety of Canadians was protected. And that's why we signed multiple contracts with multiple vaccine producers. We didn't know which one we were going to hit on. And at the time, keep in mind,
with all due respect, that was at the beginning. How do you still have $1 billion worth of vaccines sitting in storage?
Well, again, global demand has changed since the beginning of the pandemic as well, too. We've seen vaccination rates dip as well, not just in Canada, but across the world as well. But the number one thing that to keep in mind as well, too, Canada had the highest vaccination rate, one of the highest vaccination rates in the world. We succeeded in keeping Canadians safe, not just here in Canada, but relative to other countries as well, too, including our neighbors to the south, the U.S., which actually had manufacturing capacity at the very beginning. And so we made sure that we got as much vaccines into the country as possible, made sure we protected Canadians. That was a number one priority, and I can tell you that we succeeded. And that was our number one focus.
And to Mr. Hallan, I want to ask you about that wastage. Are you concerned about that, considering that there was that big global global race, I should say?
Well, what we've seen is the Liberal legacy of mismanagement continues. We saw that in the AG's report. She also said that there was the problem was that they had the ability to track, but they failed in doing that. And that's what caused the mismanagement that took place. They weren't able to, they were tracking things on spreadsheets, which was very inefficient. And at the end of the day, again, taxpayers on the hook because of Liberal failures of mismanagement.
Mr. Blakey, does it make any sense to you that this many doses are sitting in storage to be wasted?
No, it doesn't. And I think particularly if you consider that Canada was the first developed country to go to COVAX and take vaccines out of that system that was designed to deliver vaccines to places in the world that really needed assistance. I think history will look poorly on Canada's role in disseminating vaccines globally, given how much waste there actually was.
Yeah, Mr. Blakey, Mr. Hallan, appreciate you guys being in studio once again. We may set up some cots for you to be back tomorrow. Mr. Eric Kuzmierczak, thank you for joining us via Zoom. We appreciate this.